Okay, so we talked about effective communication in the previous video, saying that this is when we have two participants um, in the communication gimmick, like we have A and B communicating. A is able to understand exactly what B is sending. At the same time, B is also able to understand what A is sending. And one burst thing that enables effective communication is the part where we have feedback in that communication. We are saying that when A sends a message to B, if B is now able, we're saying that if A sends a message to B, if B is now able to respond to B probably with a feedback, then that's one of the things that can enable us to be so sure that the communication was effective, or that enhances effective communication basically. So today we want to mention a couple of reasons that communication can cease to be effective, right? We're talking about the reasons that makes communication not effective. So those are what we call the barriers to effective communication. We're talking about any hindrance, we're talking about any situation, we're talking about any stumbling block that basically hinders the flow of information, leading to potential misunderstanding, conflicts, and even inefficiency. So at the end of the day, we are saying A is sending a message to B, but B is not able to comprehend exactly what A was trying to say. Or B got another meaning of what A was trying to say. You get the point? So that's basically what you want to talk about. What are the different factors that affect effective communication, that are acting as barriers to effective communication? Yeah. So this diagram depicts about 6 of them, but there are more than this, but rather we're just going to be sticking to this for the meantime. And even if you want to go ahead and research for some other, you'll be having a general idea of what you're calling barriers to effective communication. Yeah. So by definition, if you are asked to define what is a barrier to effective communication, we're talking about any hindrance. You get the point? We're talking about anything at all that hinders effective communication. We're talking about the stumbling blocks, right? We're talking about anything that's going to be affecting the effective flow of information that potentially leads to misunderstanding, conflicts, and even inefficiency. That's basically what you're talking about, yeah? So number one of them, we are going to talk about cultural differences. We will talk about lack of time. We will talk about technological barriers. We'll talk again about lack of feedback, as we have mentioned on the first intro here. That feedback helps us to get or to enable the communication to be effective, in the sense that the receiver is able to explain back, or is able to comprehend in full what the sender would have said, yeah? We'll talk about noise and distractions, and of course, language and jargon. Yeah? So, with that having been said, let's move on now to talk about the part on maybe our first point that we have here. So, we're going to be having them like this: the barrier, the explanation, and we'll talk about maybe the different ways on which we can actually overcome that barrier. Yeah? So, the first one that we have now is the part of jargon, language and jargon, yeah? So we're saying that this, the use of technical terminology or industrial specific jargon can be misunderstood. You get the point? We're talking about somebody, or maybe a group of people, talking or discussing about a certain terminology that is using a certain terminology that is strictly in their industry. You can imagine now when you have programmers that are probably gathered together and they are discussing about maybe their codes. You get the point? If somebody comes through and say that my program has got a lot of bugs inside it, you get the point? Program with bugs. So in this terminology now, bugs in English probably just means a couple of insects, or some type of insects rather. So if you come through and you're saying that your program is containing some insects, that's going to be something that's going to be not understood by somebody who is coming through from a non-programming background, or a non-computer science or programming background, basically. But if they come through and simplify this to say that my program has got errors, yeah, my program has got errors. So understand that the program is not performing like what is supposed to be. That's why we are saying that the program has got errors. These two guys have just said the same thing. These now, if they are actually going to be saying that the program has got bugs in their own, this is a technical terminology. It's a technology that is known by all programmers, but it's not understood by other people. So that can actually end up having, if A is just sending to B, whereby A is non-programming, whereby A is a programming expert. So if A just says to B that my programming has got bugs, B is not going to be understanding what A is trying to say. Why? Because they are using technical terminology or industrial specific jargon. I hope that makes sense. So we're saying that industry or build or business specific acronyms can confuse other stuff or new stuff. You get the point? So staff in a business that operate across international borders may speak different language. So if A is in probably the IT department, B probably is just in the management department or probably in the sales department or HR department, might not really understand the jargon that is used in this block. So at the end of the day, we are saying all departments, they're supposed, when you are communicating across departments, across international borders or across departments, we are saying that we need to make sure that we are using common terminology that's going to be understood by both. That's basically what we are saying. So how do we avoid that? We avoid use the jargon or the terms which are too we're saying that use of jargon or terminology or terms which are too technical should be minimized. You get the point? When you're talking to laymen, make sure that you're actually simplifying your talk. When talking about the part, again, in agreed language for key communication is implemented. So in an organization, maybe we might stick to English. So the moment that you're going to be talking about the part of computer science related terms, can you just find a simplified English word that we can actually use to replace that so as to avoid the part on language and jargon. Again, even when you're talking about people in a company setup, let's just take, for example, that it's school, a multinational school here. We're talking about the part that we might be having Zimbabweans, we might be having South Africans, we might be having people from the UK, we might be having people from probably USA. So in that zone now, you might need to stick to a common language, maybe English, that is generally understood by these guys, and these guys, rather than using a language that is not understood by any of these participants. That's basically what we are saying as far as language and jargon being a barrier is concerned. Yeah? Moving on now, we can talk again about the part on noise and distractions. Yeah. So we're talking about the part loud machinery or crowded places can interfere with effective communication. If I'm going to be talking to probably if A and B wants to communicate, but the environment that A, B is in is probably noisy. So if it's over the phone call, B is not going to be getting the full aspect or the full meaning of what A or the full message of what A is trying to send to him or to them because their environment is just noisy. So that's the first part here of what you're talking about here. Loud machinery or crowd environment can actually interfere with the distractions, right? Again, we're talking about the part distractions including phone notifications and email alerts with which can divert their attention. Suppose that I'm talking to you, yes, you are probably, I'm talking to you over the laptop, over the computer basically, then your phone is just by the side. So as I'm talking to you, I'm delivering information to you, you are focusing on this, but your phone now just probably hits an alarm or hits a bell that needs your attention. Yeah? That's going to be coming through as a distraction. That will make you not pay full attention to what I'm trying to portray to you here. So at the end of the day, distractions are going to be coming through again as other reasons why communication might not be effective. Yeah? So what can we do with distractions? We limit distractions such as pop-up messages and even unnecessary emails. So if I'm talking, probably you're in a lesson over the computer, you turn off or you switch off, you put the phone on silent mode, that you can actually pay full attention to the video. Once that is done, then you attend to this. That's probably how we can minimize distractions. When talking about the part of noise environment, the best way is just to set a room on the factory floor in which conversations are possible, right? You move away from the noise environment, then you go in a quiet place, then you can actually answer a call from an environment which is less noisy. That's basically what you can do in industry, which is loud machinery, or when you're actually at a workplace which is crowdy. You need to set up a room where you can actually get to communicate in an effective way. Yeah, that's basically what we have as far as noise and distractions are concerned. Then if we talk now about the part of lack of feedback, we're saying that the absence of feedback can affect understanding and lead to misunderstanding. You get the point? We're saying that messages can require urgent clarification or correction to avoid mistakes being made. So if I have probably given you a task like A is sending you a task to B, B now might need to be able to understand exactly what A is saying. So if we then happen to communicate in only one channel, a one-way type of communication now, whereby A is just telling B, but B is not given a room to actually respond to A. At the end of the day, B is just going to be getting what he has just understood by the message. Even if the information that they have received is not correct, they're still going to be acting out on the wrong instruction because there is no room now of actually asking back questions for clarity from A. I hope that makes sense. So there is need for feedback now so that any correction or any misunderstanding now that might have happened can actually be quickly addressed. Yeah. So how can we probably correct that? So where appropriate, select the method that allows feedback. Some communication does not allow feedback, but rather we are saying that where appropriate, that's the keyword. Where appropriate, we need to select a method that's going to be allowing us to have feedback from the people that we would have sent messages to. Yeah. Then we encourage again an open culture where employees are confident to ask their questions. You know, if I have a teacher, then I'm delivering to B as a student. B might not be confident enough to respond or to actually ask questions to me. Why? Because I have not created a culture that is open enough for B to be asking questions back to me. That's basically what's happening here. So I hope this part of lack of feedback is just knocked some sense in you. Then let's just probably discuss the last three, then we close it up. We're saying about the part of cultural norms and expectations, cultural differences, yeah? Cultural norms and expectations can affect communication style, right? Probably as Zimbabweans, we don't greet elders whilst you're wearing our hats. If you greet elders whilst you're wearing your hat, it might actually come through as a sign of disrespectfulness. So imagine somebody coming through now from the UK, probably just goes ahead and greet somebody with their hands in the pocket or with their hats on. That ain't going to be causing any problem to them, but to the Zimbabwe, if they're doing it now to the Zimbabwean now, this guy is just going to think that the UK person or the UK citizen is actually being rude to them. Why? Because their culture, they have actually some cultural differences between them. You get the point? So at the end of the day, we need to have a part where we build a culture of teamwork and respect among his employees, and again including cultural awareness in training and development programs, so that we get to have a situation whereby these guys will share with these guys basically their norms, so that they can come to a common understanding now, to a common ground, as they'll be probably carrying out their conversations in the industry. Yeah. Again, let's talk about lack of time in a minute. So busy work schedules and competing priorities can limit the time available for communication. You get the point? So if we don't have enough time to communicate, it might come through as a message. I can give an example here is probably in a relationship, A and B dating, and A does not have enough time for B. You see that B will actually start to think that A is not truly in love with B simply because A is not giving enough time to B. Are you getting the point? So we are saying now lack of time might actually be read as something that is coming through to be a message that is being sent. But basically, it's just the part of work being busy the schedules are just tight. That's basically what is happening with A, not really about the part of him having less love to B. I think that doesn't really make sense. So at the end of the day, now we can do the part on having scheduled meetings in shared calendars, so that maybe A won't probably forget about probably a date that they have with B. Maybe A don't forget about the priorities that they have with B. That's basically what I'm talking about. Or else A can actually have the part of amending workloads to ensure that effective communication can always take place. So the schedules, the workload has to be minimized or has to be arranged in such an order that there is still room to communicate with the departments in the organization. I hope that is making sense. Then to close it up now, we have the part on technological barriers, where we have the part where with poor internet connectivity, whereby whenever you're communicating with somebody, A is communicating with B with probably over Skype. Then if A's network is poor, at the end of the day, B will not get the full message, or the communication flow here is just going to be coming through to be affected. Why? Because there is connectivity problem, yeah? So we're saying that technical issues such as a poor internet connection, malfunctioning equipment, and even unfamiliarity with platforms. If I ask you probably to have a lesson with you maybe on Google Meet, you might not be actually well versed with Google Meet, which might even affect your understanding, may limit you in understanding probably what I will be trying to explain to you over the platform, because you need to learn the platform as well as I will be teaching you. I hope that makes sense. So what we would do, what organization can do with that is the part of investing invest in good quality of ICT, probably, and investing again in training services, so that their employees can actually be well versed with probably some platforms and equipments that can actually be used at the organization. Yeah, that's basically about the part on barriers to effective communication. I hope you have taken down some notes, and you can pause the video as you'll be going, so that you can actually take everything down. But if you have any question, please feel free to browse me, so that we can actually update on the areas of concern. Yeah.